What is the difference between theater of the mind combat and miniature-based combat? Well, there's not too much of a difference. Both can use a sheet of paper to help them keep track of what's going on. But what is one doing? Miniatures is helping you communicate and remember technical things, so when you're doing combat, it's easier to remember where the characters are, where the monsters are, and what all that means. And it's easier to, make sure the players are on track with those details. When it comes to theater of the mind, there is a difference, a huge difference. It is your memory that is being dependent on. You have no tools to keep you, clear and focused. You need to depend on your memory, description, as long as the game master is keeping everybody informed, and the game master, who is responsible more than others to remember everything, is remembering everything going on in combat. So they keep themselves and their players informed. And by doing so, guess what? Theater of the mind combat goes faster than miniature combat when it's being done right. That's a fact. In my own personal experience talking to players about their experience with miniature combat versus theater of the mind combat, every player who is being open with me on this subject tells me when it comes to running their imagination during combat, right? The experience overall and the faster pace of combat in theater of the mind, that is what they prefer as far as that experience. Now, I've met some players that do tell me that even though they acknowledge that, their imagination runs a little better with theater of the mind, some of them do prefer miniatures, because as players, they often forget what's going on, and they admit they're playing in games with game masters that need the miniatures to remind them of what's going on, because they can't really depend on their memory in the way that they see game masters like myself who run theater of the mind, like pure theater of the mind, do. Like, I can run my memory pretty well, like I can remember what's going on and keep track of everything and keep everyone informed. Some guys out there simply can't do it. So if you want to be able to game with them, well, you got to be okay with gaming with miniatures. And so there's some players out there that, because it's their friends that run the game or what have you, they actually do enjoy miniature gameplay. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And the point of this video is not to put down miniature gameplay as a way to promote theater of the mind. I'm just telling you what I honestly have experienced, and I'm giving you my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give you players some advice, right? That might seem counter to some things you've heard, but I swear it's what I'm going to tell you is right and true. Okay, you can't take a variety of approaches to all these different games. But if you play one game, say you're playing AD&D First Edition. Well, if you play with miniatures, right, and like that's what you do the majority of the time, you shouldn't just do it the majority. You should always do it with miniatures. And here's why. When you're doing something, you're training yourself. And if you train your imagination to spark up with miniatures and not with theater of the mind, well, for you to get your best experience and to evolve that tool and get better at what you're doing, stick to miniatures with AD&D First Edition, going forward forever. If you ever switch over, it shouldn't be for a part-time thing. It should be for a permanent switch if that's what you want to do. Now, you want to try both at one point. There's no doubt. You want to make sure you know what each experience is like. You should try it out. You don't have to run it, but maybe find a game master that is running, say, the opposite of what you're doing and have a test. See if you can actually try it out and see what it's like. But for the most part, you should stick to a path and stay on it, right? You never know how long you're going to be in the hobby or what you're doing, but you're looking to have a great experience with these games. Well, one of the ways to have a great experience with these games is to know how to get your imagination really fired up and how to really run that as best you can. So think about what you're doing as like training. And if you're all over the place, it's hard to train it the one way and get really good at it and improve your experience, because the better you get at something, the better it is for you. Like, you'll be able to do more, understand more, enjoy it on a different level. But if you're doing theater of the mind here with it sometimes, miniatures over here with it sometimes, you're really scattered brain on your approach, well, you'll be slower in evolving that tool, to trigger the imagination. And I've seen some players be in the hobby for like 10, 20 years, and they're really not good at it at all. Like, they'll eat pretzels, have their drink, The imagination doesn't run too much. They're a bit scatterbrained when they play, and you can see it clearly. Let me pitch something at you about training your mind to improve your imagination and your experience in the game. If you really don't believe that's a thing, hear me out. You might have had this experience. So most people in the hobby really don't do special, unique voices. They just run their own voice. They'll change tone. They'll watch the words they're saying so they can match it up to the character or non-player character, in the game, right? And you'll hear some game masters out there that say, oh, you should be doing voices because it got to get boring hearing the same voice over and over again. Well, really go talk to players. And here's what you'll find out about their imagination. As long as you're doing something like tone and making sure you're speaking words that the character or the non-player character would say, the players will start to take it in as the character. Like they won't take it in as your game master voice. They'll just take it in as that's the guy standing in front of them. Now, at first, they're going to try to do this. They'll just instinctively try to do this. And it won't matter if you're a guy running the female NPC. Again, tone, watch the words, and you'll notice your players, if you really pay attention and ask, accept the non-player character as female. Like, they're not even put off that they're hearing your voice for each NPC. And the more they play with you, you'll notice the more they're completely immune. Like, their imagination gets better. They get better at doing it because they're constantly doing it. They're constantly listening for the tone and the words and then imagining the non-player character in front of them. That's a female. And as long as you do that, boom, they believe it. If you ask them afterwards, does it matter that you're hearing my voice each time? If they're being honest with you, they would say, I didn't even think about that until you asked me. Now, I run pure theater of the mind. And what do I mean? Is when it comes to combat, I do theater of the mind because I can remember where everything is. I don't need the grid. I don't need the miniatures. And I can keep players informed as to what's going on. And if my players are constantly playing theater of the mind combat, it's like anything else. They get better at it and better at it. Like, their imagination gets better and better and better. Mine is already there because I've already worked it out. So, with that imagination, it makes it easier to imagine something, to imprint that on your mind, and then remember that as you're going forward. But if you're not trying that, you don't really know that tool works that way. Like, that these images imprint on your mind, and it makes it easier for you to remember where things are, where creatures are, where monsters are. But you got to work that muscle out. And if you're always jumping to miniatures, you're really not going to push that hard. So a lot of people won't even know that they're capable of doing theater of the mind really easily once they understand that, really work out the imagination, and that imprinting of the image in their mind is what's going to help them remember things that they think they're going to forget. And if you take them right into theater of the mind right away without any practice, they are going to fall on their face. They are going to make mistakes, right? They're not used to that. They're not used to doing it. It is something you have to get good at, but it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long at all. It takes 2 or 3 sessions, like where you might bump, yourself, trip over things, but then you should be fine for the most part going forward. And that's it. Theater of the mind is not hard, right? You just have to be able to remember everything. And again, what's miniatures doing? It's just coming in to help you remember everything. Now, if you tell me that miniatures help you with your imagination, yeah, because you've gotten used to triggering your imagination with miniatures. My only argument is there's really complex things going on with that will limit your imagination. That it's like, look, if I get you to read a book, you don't need the miniature, right? And your imagination runs wild, right? When you're reading that story in the book, right? No issue, right? And if I actually tried to get you to look at a figurine of one of the characters in the thing and started showing you that, you're going to know right away you don't even need that to fire up the imagination, and you're deeply in. Well, theater of the mind is like that, right? Like, it fires up your imagination with no layers between you and your imagination and that performance. The difference is looking at a miniature needing tools like that to get that fired up means there is a layer between you and your imagination that will put limits on it. Now, I'm not saying that to win an argument. I'm not saying that to say theater of the mind is better. I'm saying that to tell you the fucking truth. The argument between theater of the mind combat and miniature combat really isn't an argument, right? The elements that I speak of in this video are simply true. And you choose whatever path you want to go down. That's it, right? And it doesn't matter how you get to whatever, way you enjoy experiencing the game. Get there. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't make me better than you because I might play or run the game differently than you do. I'm not saying it makes me better. And I'm not saying what I'm doing is better. At all. My only argument, it's the reason why I go to Theater of the Mind. I find that it works with the imagination better. And the imagination is the core thing of what we're doing with these games. And to me, if that's the better path towards that thing, I want to take it. And over the years, that has given me the best experiences at these games. But the truth is, maybe that doesn't work for you. Right? That's it. That's for me. And it might be good for other people, but it might not be good for you and some other people. If it's not good for you and some other people, then it's not better than what you're doing. Whatever's doing it for you, that's the best thing for you. And that would be the best thing for other people. So there really is no argument or debate here, right? It comes down to the individual. So I'm talking to individuals, right? So if you really care about, the imagination, and that's an area you want to run into, well, then maybe you do want to hear me out, and maybe you want to stay away from miniatures. But hey, if you like, the strategy gameplay, you like the elements of the grid and the miniatures, and they look cool to you, and all that stuff seems really cool and triggers up your imagination just thinking about the game, well, that's better for you, and my way is not good for you at all. Right? But that way is not good for me. Your way is not good for me at all. And it's not good for other people that are like me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we can't play in each other's game and we can find some enjoyment in each other's game. But my game is not better than yours. Yours is not better than mine. It's just my game is better for me and your game is better for you. Anyway, for now, take care. You know what you can do? You can hit the like button. You can share the video. Oh, and there's another button you can press. That one that lets you subscribe to my channel for more content. Oh yeah, there's that bell thing. You can press that so you know when I've uploaded a new video right away.